Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Neil Haley Show, Media Giant Effect, and also the Kim Sorrell Celebrity segment. I'm excited to welcome first my co-host, Kim Sorrell, author of Love Is. Kim, how are you? This is your favorite time of year, isn't it? The holidays.
I love the holidays. I've got lots of grandkids and they're all coming over and I can't wait.
And we have an exciting guest today. I'm always intrigued by authors and how they're able to come up with their craft. So who's our guest today?
Buddy Levy, the man, the myth, the legend. Buddy, I don't know when you sleep. You have a new book that has just come out. You're this follower of eco adventures. You've written documentaries, you teach, you have written so many books and have done so many crazy things. I'm happy you're still alive. So thank you for being here. And I just am so excited to talk to you and hear about your latest project.
Hey, thanks for having me, y'all. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I've been pretty busy last few years.
So how many books have you written, buddy?
8, and I've just started my 9th. So I'm trying to get, up to 10 to 15 before my capacities are diminished.
So Kim, when are you going to catch up to 8 to 9? I've not written one yet. I guess he's calling me out there. I got to write a book too. I mean, you've two, so you can catch up, right? 8 to 9, Kim?
Oh yeah. I'll catch up. I'll catch up soon. I'll work on that. But and not only writing and all of the stuff that you've done, Buddy, but your babysitter was Ernest Hemingway's granddaughter. I find that quite interesting.
You have done your research. Yeah, I grew up in the ski town of Ketchum, Idaho, and my first babysitter there was Margot Hemingway. And Jack Hemingway, Ernest Hemingway's eldest son, was my French teacher and taught me how to fly cast with the fly rod. So I have some Hemingway connection. My father was good friends with Jack Hemingway, and Jack Hemingway incidentally wrote the foreword to my very first book, which was called Echoes on Rimrock. So yeah, good research there.
And that's impressive too, buddy. I mean, to be able to have that for the first forward, right? That gets you started, doesn't it, as an author?
Yeah, it puts a little pressure on you to have the Hemingway name on your first book. What are you going to do? What are you going to do for an encore?
There's nothing to do. And what advice do you give authors, especially that want to be published? Because again, the success you've had, being able to be published, it's not the easiest thing in the world to go out and find a publisher and find it, and also just write a book, right? Right, buddy?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to just trust in yourself and your intuitions and be really persistent. That's the main thing. Writers, these books, as I tell my children and my new grandson, these books don't write themselves. So you have to sit your butt down in the chair and be persistent and rigorous and dedicated, and it'll happen if you stay at it.
Yeah. So your latest book, Emperor of Ice and Stone, very interesting. The story of two men, really. And I love you're just such a gifted storyteller. And so I'd like to hear what the process was with that book and what you did.
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, this is it's a historical true story of the 1913 Canadian Arctic expedition. And when I had written another book a couple of years ago about the Arctic called Labyrinth of Ice, and when I found this story, I mean, it had everything. It has shipwreck and mutiny on the frozen polar seas, frostbite, starvation, survival, and grand adventure. And then there's heroism and cowardice too. And so when I saw that this story had pretty much everything I looked for, including a protagonist and an antagonist that are essentially a hero and a villain. They're more complicated than that, of course, but there is heroism and villainous behavior. I just thought I've got to try to tell this story in the best way that I can and make it a page turner. And I hope I've done that. My goal is to make a historical tale for which we already know the ending a page turner. And it's a challenge, but when you get it right, it sort of reads like a movie.
And is that a goal for you? A movie for this?
Absolutely. But Hollywood is sort of it's a tough nut to crack. I've had a number of my books have been optioned by big time players in the industry, and you know, it's really remarkable that anything ever gets made. You see so much on TV, and then having been on I was on a 2 seasons. I was on a History Channel television show myself, and you know, it's just really amazing that things get made. And some of my books really lend themselves to either a film or probably more so a limited series or docu-series.
Yes, and this one in particular, but many of your books for sure should be movies. This one should definitely be a movie. I wouldn't be surprised if it actually happens. I know what you're saying, but it should happen. So adventure and history are your gigs, right? How did that happen for you, do you think?
Wow, that's such a great question. You know, I think part of it has that I grew up in this ski town, like I mentioned, Sun Valley, Idaho, and also my father was an Olympic Nordic skier. He's a really unusual person. He grew up in Louisiana, but he ended up being a Nordic skier, and he competed in the '56 Winter Olympics. And so I was steeped in outdoor adventure from a very early age, and then I started following crazy adventure racers around the world back in the late '90s and early 2000s, including Mark Burnett, who had this show called the Eco Challenge. Mark Burnett, the man who created Survivor and The Apprentice. And I got really lucky, and I was able to travel around the world as a journalist covering these extreme adventure sports. And that's where I started to get really interested also in the historical stories, because I went to Greenland in 2003, and that's where I stumbled onto this Arctic kind of Arctic historical narrative exploration, and I was just hooked, and I remain hooked.
And now, buddy, I know you have an agent, and this is the point when you're talking about optioning for movies. Why don't you look at these, creating these as series? Because everyone, I think movies are dying in so many ways that it's going to be series on different shows, and people love this stuff. I mean, how many fans do you have from the History Channel when you did your show? Isn't it
Oh man.
amazing? It's crazy. It's great. It's a great built-in audience for selling a book, right? With all your history fans that you've developed. So why don't they become series? Remember History Channel used to have Viking on that was really good. That was
Oh man.
why don't they create more of those history to look at all the other OTT networks and what they're doing and create shows like that Netflix would option or things like that? And maybe a series is a better deal for you.
Yeah, that well, you know, it's all a matter of, like I said, you've got to be persistent and keep your name out there, and you have to keep contacting the right people and get meetings, and really, you know, it's a full-time gig. So I have to balance that with I'm already writing the next book. Actually, I'm doing another amazing adventure about the first blimps or airships to try to fly to the North Pole in 1905. And so, yeah, it's a matter of having all those irons in the fire. But you're right. You know, when Decoded was on, we had about 1.7 million weekly viewers, which it went off the air in 2012. But it's still riding along on History Channel. And you know, it's just a matter of being, like I say, you have to be really dogged about it, and keep people apprised that you're working on stuff, and keep your name out there.
Well,
So this is helping.
I'll tell Kim this. I'm as relevant as the last celebrity I've interviewed, Kim. That's the truth. Okay. And that's where my list, and now add Buddy to that list, and add Buddy to the list for you too, Kim, because that's the thing. And people have to understand that we have to constantly stay out there, because even if we had these accomplishments, like Buddy's have his books, and the other thing, it's the next day of promotion when you're in this grind. And Kim, you're on this grind as well.
I am on this grind, that's for sure, trying to write books and get them out there, and write messages that you want to change the world. And I think you're on that same page, Buddy. Like, the stories that you tell, there's stories that can have great impact on people's lives.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's important too, is to have a great deal of passion about the stories. I love that you use the word grind. I talk about that with my son, who is an aspiring writer, and I always say it's about the grind. I mean, you have to, you know, you have to churn it out, and there's going to be days that aren't great, and you have to just keep at it. But also picking stories that resonate with you personally. To me, that's really crucial. I've never written a book about anything that that bored me at any time, or that I just felt like I was doing it and going through the motions as a job. When I get up in the morning and I'm on one of these quests to tell this story, and they take a couple of years, to do these right. And you have to just love the storytelling, the process, the editing, all facets of it. I think that's really important too.
Well, I don't know, Kim, what recommendation do you give me to finally write my first book? Come on now. Is it to just write a 10-page thing? Everyone wants me to write my memoir. Buddy and Kim, as a former professional wrestler, people want to know the story, how I became the media giant now from the stories back in the day in pro wrestling. It's just like the time. Kim, Buddy, you guys put so much time into writing. So Kim, how long did it take you to write your first book and your second book total?
Well, my first book, it took about a year, and my second one, it took a little bit longer than a year. I dedicated a year, Buddy, to figuring out the true meaning of love, and I did it in Haiti, and that itself is an adventure. And the things that I found out just kind of blew my mind. There are things that we're taught about love that are done in the name of love that aren't really love. And so I learned a lot about it. And I look at you and read about you, and have seen you on so many things. And you obviously love people. You obviously really like people. Not everybody does.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
I think being gregarious is really important, and which is kind of ironic, because most of what I do once I'm finally locked into the project is in an office by myself at a computer monitor. But the process, the research part of it, I really love too, where you're talking to people and interviewing people and meeting explorers and meeting librarians, where they're helping you get the information. And I will say I have one sort of advantage over a lot of writers, especially fiction writers or memoirists, which is that I know how the story is going to end. So when I start the book, I have the general, I don't have to make up the ending. I know how it's going to end. It's a matter of, I said this last night at a function. I think if I have a superpower, it's using words, my own words and other people's words, and using those and stringing those together in a certain way that sings, because what I do is take these narratives, and usually I'm working with diaries, and these explorers kept remarkable diaries and journals, and so I'm figuring out a way to bring those characters to life on the page through what they actually said in their most dire moments, sometimes even in their last breaths. And so it's just an amazing journey that I've gotten to be on, and I really, I'm just going to keep doing it as long as I possibly can.
See, you guys are so blessed to have the opportunity to be able to do what you love, as I'm able to do what I love. And it's too bad so many people in society are not choosing something that they love to do each and every day. And it doesn't feel like a grind when you do that. Just have to constantly just keep your focus, and know that you're helping others. Buddy, where's the best place people can find you and purchase your book? Where can they go?
Appreciate that. Yeah, I have a website, buddylevy.com, buddylevy.com. And then I've been really fortunate that my books are at independent booksellers near you, and at all the big box places, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and everywhere else. I'm on a roll. So thanks so much for having me.
Fantastic, Buddy. We appreciate it. You're listening and watching The Neil Haley Show, and we'll be back in just a moment.